the second attempt by the club to break from bowl's position and run a tournament on Saturday morning. Today, success was assured, with the club staging a world-class exhibition match between the Hunter Valley Player of the Year, Rocket Thompson from Cessnock, and the 1982 Commonwealth Games gold medalist, Willie Wood from Scotland. To make the Scottish champion feel at home, the club provided a group of bagpipers who played before and during the match. Willie Wood got on top from the start and proved too good for the local champs, winning the match 31-23. The other match today, the semi-final of the $1,000 select singles tournament, saw Newcastle South bowler Tony Miller defeat current Newcastle district champion Bob King of Charlestown 25-23. Miller now goes his next weekend's final against Rocket Thompson.
Mr Hayden was guest speaker at the launch of the member for Shortland, Mr Peter Morris's re-election campaign. However, at a press conference before the launch, Mr Hayden said nuclear arms was shaping up as the key election issue in the area of foreign affairs. He said the Nuclear Disarmament Party, while offering emotional rhetoric, was putting forward policies which could have no effect outside of Australia.
The vote for an NPD candidate would be a vote aimed at putting into the Parliament a parliamentarian with a part-time interest in the nation's affairs on $50,000 a year. And I wonder if that's what the public want to do.
Nevertheless, they are enjoying increasing popularity.
I don't discount that at all, but I'm saying let's take a pause for a while and put a sober focus on this.
How do you think Labor will poll?
I would think that at the very least, on a two-party preferred basis, Labor's going to give about 53% or a bit better of the vote at the very least. That's a very impressive result, two-party preferred.
But according to the latest Morgan Gallup poll, Labor still won't win control of the Senate.
No, we've always expected it would be hard to get control of the Senate. In the history of this country, there have not been many instances where a government in the House of Representatives has also been in control of the Senate. I'm not going to evade what's obviously in your mind. The PND are, in my view, polling extremely well, quite impressively, but I repeat what I said earlier. I suspect it's a flash in the pan.
What happened to taxi driver John Pinkerton was becoming all too prominent now. He was sitting on the stairs and jumped the nightclub and a brawl suddenly erupted around his house.
Actually take me on.
What did you do after you said right? John got out and I think the
We was I've done 180 odd I've just about nearly done my last late shift. I will work up till midnight, but I think after midnight I think there's going to be a bit of a problem. And I know my wife sort of made comment that she said she's not going to let me drive late at night again because I know a number of my other mates have had a number of incidents. There's a lot of incidents that just go by that we sort of go along with, except, you know, fare evasions, this type of thing. It's and damage to pushed indoors, booted doors in. Well, we sort of tend to expect part of the industry, but I mean, how much you got to expect, you know, sort of.
taxi driver stayed.
The only answer that we can come up with is increased police presence in the area. We did ask for this in September of this year, you might recall. We nominated that there would be an increase in violence with the warm weather, and sure enough it's come about. We had 2 assaults within 30 minutes. So increased police activity is what we want in that confined area in the western end of the city.
Although last night's performance was invitation only, organisers say they were inundated with calls from Because of the success of the show, it's been decided to stage the events once a year over 3 days. The performance started last night with an A and B grade show jump with prize money of $2,000. 8 riders were expected to compete, but former Olympian Vicky Roycroft pulled out of the competition because of an injury she received recently. The event was won by Chris Chugg on Sky High, who was the outright winner with 2 clear rounds. Rider Peter Kavanagh's chances were upset when his horse refused and he crashed through one of the jumps in the second round. Some of the more popular events were the Angels on Horseback. A display by the Hunter Valley Hunt Club was a continuing source of amusement, and a ballet by 4 horses called a classical quadrille. Commentator for the entire performance was Mr. John Nash, who also does the commentary for all Australian Royal shows. Highlight of the evening, however, was a solo performance by British Olympic equestrienne Mrs. Jenny Lauriston-Clark, who did a repeat of a similar performance she did 2 years ago at the Wembley Horse of the Year show, performing to the pipes of former Australian piping champion Mr. Barry Ryan of Gloucester.
And in minutes fun can turn to tragedy. The child taken from the water lake yesterday was blue and apparently not breathing. Off-duty nurse was joined by the manager of the ocean baths and both applied respiration until the ambulance arrived. Happily, the child has recovered with no ill effects. Manager Peter Wormsley, whose own grandson is about the age of the child that almost drowned,
certainly, Jim, it's probably the greatest invention or the greatest.
He believes everyone should know what to do in such a situation.
New method of cardiac resuscitation is tremendous.
Obviously, you think the public should know it, should be able to do it themselves.
Certainly, by all means. It's something that's very, very simple to learn, and it's something you'll never forget.
The doctors say the incident once again underlines the need for the public to learn the CPR.
With the approaching hot weather, we can't overemphasise the need for people to learn CPR and to provide it properly, especially with the swimming pools that we have around our community and indeed the beaches as we've seen in this incident.
And even if someone appears to have drowned, they should keep up that resuscitation for how long?
Well, indeed, until the ambulance arrives. We've seen incidents where people have been in full cardiac arrest. CPR has been kept up for as long as half an hour. We've made a successful reversion. We can't overemphasise the need for people to provide good CPR and stay at it.
According to the AFULE's State Secretary, Mr. Bernie Willingale, members employed at the 3 depots had been asking the union for a full meeting for some time. Mr. Willingale said the members were angry that the State Rail Authority had not come to grips with the crewing problems of these trains. Around 29 days, he said, had been lost in industrial action over manning levels since the beginning of last year. The main item under discussion at the meeting today is the technical problems associated with operating the coal trains without waste. The issue of manning on the XPT will also be discussed. The State Rail Authority, however, says the lightning strike has totally disregarded the conditions of the dispute settlement, which provides for 72 hours of notice of a dispute. Agreement was reached, they say, only this morning between the SRA, the New South Wales Labour Council and the AFULE on how these issues should proceed, so the current strike is senseless. The AFULE say there are no plans at this stage to lengthen the stoppage, but this could depend on the outcome of talks with the SRA in Sydney tomorrow morning. Mr. Saunders said the military memorabilia is to be incorporated into a larger bicentennial project.
aimed at preserving the hunters' heritage. He said the collection would be housed in a yet-to-be-determined site and disagreed with the town planning report tabled earlier this month, which expressed concern about the possibility of finding a suitable location and the cost of establishing the museum.
Couldn't the money have been better spent elsewhere?
Well, I mean, I suppose you get all sorts of opinions of where the money should be spent. You ask half a dozen people, you probably get 6 different answers.
In a report tabled by the city planner, Mr. Fielding, he said the museum would be unlikely to attract a significant number of tourists.
Well, that's his opinion. Of course, basically, the report was considered by the Town Clerks Coordination Committee and they concurred in the recommendation, but as administrator, I take into account other factors.
Now that the collection has been acquired, there'll be the additional cost of a building to house it in. Where's that money going to come from?
Well, that money would have to come from the council eventually, but it would be a matter that would be spread over years, so that instead of being involved directly in the ratepayers of Newcastle at one time, it would be where posterity would pay for the situation from loan funds.
The unit has been housed in what was formerly known as the matron's cottage, which has been extended to accommodate the new equipment.
Official line, past District Governor Alex C. Thompson, who would like to, at this particular stage, pledge up to...
The District Governor of Lyons, Mr Ian Seymour, officially opened the centre today. This was followed by a presentation speech which will go towards the unit's planning cost. The concert at Spears Point Park featured the Lake Macquarie Police and Citizens Pipe Band, which provided the means for junior Scottish dancers and Highland dancers from the Hunter Valley and Lake Macquarie regions to demonstrate their skills. The dancers performed before the guests of honour at the concert, the much-honoured Peter Lamont of that ilk, chief of the Lamont clan, who attended at the invitation of the Hunter Valley Scots Club, and the Mayor of Lake Macquarie, Alderman Jeff Pasterfield. Festivities will continue throughout the week with a dance this evening, a dinner in Cayley Tuesday night and St Andrew's Day celebrations next Friday.
Run at the newly constructed off-road course north of Raymond Terrace. It's a 4-kilometre course through bushland and is rated highly by both local and visiting drivers from Sydney and Kempsey Club. The leading cars reach very high speeds in short bursts and go by quickly, even in tight corners, leaving a dusty trail in their wake. Leading driver in this heat of the Tri-Challenge, Mark Trees, lived up to his name, as he lost it all at about 110 k's an hour and did just that. No real damage though to car or driver. The sport is well organised under canned rules and the ambulance attended just to be sure. Off-roading is the quickest growing motorsport in Australia and destined, some say, to take over from rallying, now under pressure to get off public roads. Newcastle boasts one of the nation's leading teams, Quicksilver, with Harold Gill and former rugby league star Neville Boyd, the top drivers.
And George Santa, grey away, which has been all over the place.
Both competitors
Bit of
and the
cabinet from
general
Larks,
public, who relished the opportunity to look over the beautiful Andalusian stud. The main feature of the day was the show jumping. That included some of the nation's very best riders, including Kevin Burke, who leads the Pacific area in World Cup standings, George Santa, a 1984 Olympian, Australian junior champion Susan Small, former junior champion Gail Powell, Peter Kavanagh, Chris Muncaster, and of course Australia's most travelled equestrian, Johnny Fay. The clock went years backwards for most as the old sulkies came on show in the precision driving event. It seems the horses enjoy the outing as much as the passengers, as they get happily into their work. The 100-hectare property on the banks of the beautiful Williams River is a pleasant place indeed to spend a fine sunny day and dream perhaps of being a country squire.
Yes, yeah.
Saturday night, the eyes of most of the Australian voting public will be glued to television sets. Either at home or at the more sociable election parties, they'll be waiting to see who'll be the next leader of the country. For 70 Nova Caspians at least, that won't be the case. But 70 of the members of the Newcastle University Choir will be performing at the Christchurch Cathedral. The performance, called Music for Choir, Organ and Brass, will be their final major concert for the year. The organisers say they plan to hold the concert on Saturday night, when before Prime Minister Hawke chose that date for the election. And in what they say is a gesture to show there's no hard feeling, the organisers will send a personal invitation to the Prime Minister. The performance will be conducted by well-known Nova Caspian Peter Brock, and if you attend, this is what you can expect.
Well, the question of crowds doesn't only belong to rugby league. If we look at the cricket test today, there was very few people there. And over the 4 days of the cricket and other sports are in exactly the same position. We certainly have to generate more interest from the public. We do need the media support to do that, but the crowd is not the only answer to the success of rugby league. For example, the KB Cup, or the MK Shield as it was formerly known, is staged just for TV. And the viewing audience there is far beyond what we could hope to draw anywhere in this town.
So do you see something like that maybe coming into the Newcastle Rugby League competition?
It could be part of the answer, Matt. Really could be.
School councils will be made up of the school's principals, selected teachers and parents, and other community members. Dr. Lawrenson said the councils will assist in developing school policy by gauging each school's individual interests. Its findings could then be channelled back through the education department. He stressed, however, the councils would not be
behind the school
compulsory.
councils.
The school councils are opportunities for members of the community, particularly parents, and for teachers, to come together and work in the interest of the school, developing ideas about school policy, looking at curricular matters, and generally helping to relate to the school and assist the school in its operation. At the present time, it's exploratory. if it comes into being in the near future, it won't be a requirement on schools. It will be a matter of schools electing to have a school council.